today. Few of y'all. I remember you. I think you left. Yeah. But anyway, I'm not gonna call y'all out or anything. Where's the other dude at? Oh, there was some dude I was gonna call him out too because he talked the entire time we were up there talking, and I started to call him up to the stage. Anyway, our diet, what are we eating? Like processed foods. Did your great grandmother eat processed foods? My great grandmother didn't eat processed foods. She lived to be 103 years old. Guess how old I am? 75. You cheated, Yesenia. I will be 50 in August, and I can outrun my 28-year-old son still. He's never beat me in a race, and he's training to be a firefighter. U.S. Army strong, baby. All right, so anyway, our diet, what are we eating? Stop eating that. Eat foods that your great-grandmother would know as food. If your great-grandmother doesn't know it as food, if she wouldn't eat it, if she would not cook it, prepare it, and consume it herself, don't eat it. It's not for you. And then research is targeted. They spend lots and lots of money researching all sorts of pharmaceuticals or pharmatoxins, as I call them for y'all, because I'm not taking that stuff because I've seen the side effects. But people do research for audiences that they can get a return on their investment for. The most common causes of death in the U.S. heart disease, cancer, COVID, and respiratory diseases. This is new to this list. I've been doing this class since 2005, almost 20 years. It's my most requested class. All right, so new to this list is COVID. Strokes, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, liver disease, and kidney disease. Liver disease is also new to this list, and it's kind of personal for me because my sister passed away from liver disease. Damn, I was supposed to ask y'all what the threading factor between all of those is, and the answer is inflammation. There he is. Hey, with the hat. No talking. Y'all remember The Prisoner? Yeah. All right, some of y'all watch TV. Good deal. All right, so at the beginning of The Prisoner, the opening sequence, he's a spy, and he's leaving the agency, and he's trying to go live his own life, and his boss is asking him for information. So this is a play on that because inflammation sounds like information if you say it, fast enough or whatever. But inflammation is the thread that links all of these conditions. If you can stop inflammation in your body, you will not have disease. There's no pass and go, no collecting $200, no going directly to jail. You won't have disease if you can stop inflammation in your body. And I'm a poster child for that. I'm going to tell you about that in a little bit. All right, so heart disease. In the white, and since I'm a science guy, all the yellow stuff is in peer-reviewed journal articles. So I'm not saying it, I'm just reporting it because that's what it is. Their research showed if the number of fruits and vegetables eaten daily are increased by only 1 serving per day, there's a 4% lower risk of heart disease. They're not telling you to switch your diet to something your ancestors didn't eat and go completely vegan. They're just saying, eat some more fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. Some of the other things that are very good for heart disease are specifically leafy greens. And how many of y'all eat leafy greens on a daily basis? A few people. Y'all are a good audience because that's about the highest I've seen in a long time. The human body is supposed to be not fueled by Dunkin'. Like I'm a Dunkin', but it's supposed to be fueled by leafy greens. 85% of what you eat on a daily basis. In fact, every plate of food you eat, 85% of it is supposed to be a leafy green, a non-starchy vegetable. We don't eat like that anymore, but we need the roughage. We need to keep things moving through our system. Y'all remember those? I don't know how old you are, but I remember during like the late 70s and early 80s, they always were talking about staying regular. It was all the commercials, Metamucil and all that other stuff talking about staying regular. They don't say that on the commercials anymore because the commercials are selling y'all pharmatoxins. They're not worried about y'all staying regular. They're trying to sell y'all drugs. You got to stay regular. You've got to build bulk in your stool and have that stuff pass out of your system as quickly as possible. Because that number 85% also refers to the amount of your immune system that is caught up fighting the stuff rotting in your guts. If 85% of your immune system is caught fighting the stuff in your guts rotting, how much is left over to fight disease and keep the inflammation out of your body? Something to think about. So stay regular by eating your leafy greens, your roughage and all that. Also good for heart disease with strawberries and citrus. And I'll talk more about citrus later. All right, so strokes. Increased fruit and vegetable intake in the range commonly consumed is associated with a reduced risk of stroke. Our results provide strong support for the recommendation to consume more than 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day, which is likely to cause a major reduction in strokes. Does anybody want to have a stroke? Y'all don't want strokes, right? Now, we're not talking about Clarence Carter and his song. We're talking about strokes, things in your brain. Y'all didn't catch that? Y'all don't know who Clarence Carter is? How sad. Y'all need to expand your music. All right, so anyway, and again, they're not saying change your whole diet to something that your ancestors didn't eat. Just eat some more fruits and vegetables. Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is scary for me because I did the 23andMe thing, and guess what came back? Early onset Alzheimer's gene. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to let you express. Go away from me. Stay. Yeah. So since I know that I've got that gene and my background is in breeding and genetics, I know that I can turn that gene off and make it not work. So some of the things that you can use to prevent Alzheimer's is Bacopa monnieri. And I found out about this plant when I was over in India. Someone was telling me about how it increases your mental acuity and all sorts of good stuff for your brain. And so when I got back to the United States, I went around looking for Bacopa monnieri, and I found some in Nelson's Water Garden. Any of y'all from Houston? Yep. All right. So Nelson's Water Garden, they're out there in Katy, and they sell water garden plants. They sold me some Bacopa monnieri for $15 for a 4-inch pot. I was like, okay, I'll just plant it and make more. Well, the cold hit and that plant died. And then I was riding around Prairie View on my bike like a little dummy. And I look over on a hill on the side of a drainage way, and guess what's growing out there? Bacopa monnieri. Just a whole freaking hillside of it. I was like, okay, I know where to get it now. Anyway, it helps clear toxins from your brain. Any of y'all cook with turmeric? Are y'all cooking with turmeric the right way? Anyway, turmeric is good for Alzheimer's disease. It's one of the few things that cross the blood-brain barrier. People who eat a lot of turmeric, their brains are yellow when they dissect them for their autopsies. Salvia officinalis, which is sage. And then because I know that Alzheimer's is linked to aluminum content in our food. Any of y'all have aluminum pots? Anybody? Nobody wants to admit to it? If you've got aluminum pots, go throw that shit away. If you get those aluminum baking things, throw that shit away. All that aluminum stuff, don't expose aluminum to your food. Aluminum is extremely toxic and extremely reactive. In nature, aluminum never exists in a pure metal form. Where is aluminum in nature? It's in the soil, but what fraction of the soil? What type of soil? So y'all didn't go to Prairie View, huh? No. Anyway, so aluminum is tied into clay. Clay particles are very tiny, and they're very, very intricate, and they've got all these minerals in them. And in between all the clay particles are all these little aluminum things. The source for our aluminum is mainly bauxite. So they take this bauxite, which is aluminum-rich mineral, and they melt it down. They get aluminum, and that's where it comes from. It's extremely reactive in nature. It doesn't exist on its own. So once it gets in your body, it just reacts and starts sticking itself in places it doesn't belong, like your brain, because it can pass the blood-brain barrier. And it gets in between your neurons, and it causes amyloid plaques or some crazy stuff like that. And then you can't think good. All right. So the way you get aluminum out of your body is with silica, because silica and aluminum are antagonists. And they tell us that silica is not biologically active, that it's not necessary for life. Well, what are your nails made out of? What's your hair made with? Why, when you die, these things persist for so long? What's in your joints? Your tendons and all that. All that's got silicates in them. So since I knew that silica drives aluminum out of the body, I was like, I wonder if Urtica dioica, which is stinging nettle, or equisetum, which is horsetail, I wonder if those are effective against Alzheimer's. And guess what I found? The research supports those two minerals are good for Alzheimer's disease. Come on in, the water's fine. All right, so that was Alzheimer's. Now COVID. And so they're filming me, so I can't say a lot of stuff about COVID right now because I don't know who's watching on the interwebs. So I'll just say no. If y'all catch me offline, I'll tell y'all, but I can't say it on the computer thing. I don't like being, recorded. I tell people in my classes, don't record me, don't take pictures of me, and I'm not giving you my presentations. Okay, I'm paranoid. I'm a Virgo. I'm sweet and innocent, but I'm paranoid at AF. All right, so some of the things that were very effective against COVID, and don't ask me how I know these things because I know them from firsthand experience, but elecampane and polygonum. Y'all want to hear a story about polygonum?
Yeah.
All right, so I did get COVID a couple of times, and I got this fantastic paper from one of my herbalist friends by a guy named Dr. Stephen Buhner, and this was an awesome researcher. He went and found all of the herbs that they're using in China at the time to fight COVID. The Chinese have 8,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine experience. They know what to do when any kind of pestilence breaks out. They know exactly what to do. They had an herb for every stage of COVID. And so I read this paper and I was like, hey, this grows by me, this grows by me, this grows by me, cool. Elecampane I had to order, but polygonum grows down the street from me. So I got sick and I knew it was COVID. I was all fevered and I had that tired feeling or whatever. So I walked a half mile down the road, and I walked a quarter mile down the creek, and I found a bunch of polygonum, and I picked as much as I needed, and I went home, and I fell asleep, and I stayed asleep till the next day because I was tired because I had to walk. Next day I got up and I made that polygonum tea, and COVID was out of me within like a couple of days. Just destroyed it because polygonum stops viral replication of the COVID virus. Some pretty effective stuff. Elecampane flushes all the fluids out of your lungs. Scutellaria is skullcap that grows around here. Rheum is rhubarb. Glycyrrhiza, licorice root. Pruaria. Pruaria is the vine that ate the South. Anybody from Alabama, Mississippi? Yes, kudzu. And then crataegus grows in our forest in East Texas. That's hawthorn, and hawthorn is also very good for like heart disease. Anyway, those are the herbs for COVID. So again, I'm not treating, curing, or diagnosing any disease. I'm just telling you my personal experience with the polygonum plant, which is Japanese knotweed. And Japanese knotweed, it's one of the worst, most invasive weeds in the world of wetlands. But I was taught by an herbalist out in Mississippi, Mama Ursine Evans. She told me if you find a new plant growing around you, it's the herb you need. And I tested it out because I started having all this giant ragweed grow around me, and my sinuses, allergies were killing me. I made a tea out of the giant ragweed, and guess what went away? All those allergies. All right, so COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. One recent study found that amongst patients with advanced COPD, African Americans had equally severe disease as Caucasians, even though they were younger and started smoking later in life and smoked less. Cigarettes are not good for Black folks. Tell your friends. Some of the things that are good against COPD are broccoli and the Mediterranean diet. Any of y'all fans of the Mediterranean diet? Yeah. So my Matzo, my German grandmother, she started off her life down in Hungary, but her family is purported to be Greek. I did my DNA and I have questions. But anyway, they were fans of this Mediterranean diet. You know, whenever she would come from Germany, I would have baklava. So it was nice. But that includes fish, fruits and vegetables, red wine. And drink your red wine daily. I'm allowing y'all. Y'all are all allowed to drink red wine on a daily basis. I'm not gonna plug any brands, but my favorite is Black Girl Magic by the McBride sisters. All right, anyway, diabetes. I hate diabetes. It's a stupid disease because it's totally preventable. And I teach another class. So this is like the third in a series of 5 classes or 6 classes that I teach. And in order, they're why organic, and that talks about why you should just eat organic stuff. And then soil remineralization, and that talks about all the minerals that are supposed to be in our foods and why they're not there anymore and how to fix that and what they do for your crops and your body. And then the herbs for health, and then gardening despite heavy metals, and it talks about all the toxic minerals in our soil and how to get rid of them. And then there's GMO. GMOs good to know. And I'm a plant breeder, so I can talk about GMOs authoritatively and tell you to stay away from that stuff because it's damaging us. And then the new one is herbs for sexual health, which is a very uncomfortable class for me to give because I'm a dude, and a lot of these ladies in Dallas made me do this class, and I was very I have to talk about all the sensitive sexual issues dealing with the plants and all that, and they picked on me the whole time. So I bring that up because there's 2 ways you can look at diabetes. I'm between 5'8" and 5'9". The Army said 5'9". The state of Texas said 5'8". I'm somewhere between there. And I've never been more than 157 pounds in my life. I started having diabetic symptoms. We know what those are? Anybody know? Frequent thirst, frequent urination, and numbness in your extremities. Started having these symptoms, and I'm like, there's no way I have type 2 diabetes. This is just wrong. I had just read a book called Nutrition Against Disease, and write that down because that's a very special book if you can find it. I got it for $1 in a thrift store. If you look online, that book is a lot. But it was written by the guy who discovered a bunch of the B vitamins, Dr. Roger Williams. And I read this book and I'm like, I wonder if there's a link between a mineral deficiency and type 2 diabetes. And the research says chromium and vanadium. A lot of people know about chromium to take for weight control and all that, but no one knows about vanadium. Chromium and vanadium work in tandem. You have to have both in sufficient amounts to do what they do. And what they do is they pull sugar in from your bloodstream to be burned so that you can metabolize these things. Vanadium, vanadium. And they sell it as vanadyl sulfate. So I started supplementing with chromium and vanadium, and within 2 weeks, all that stuff disappeared. I was like, why doesn't anybody know this? And I was like, oh, because you're not telling people about this. Let's make a class. The other things that help with diabetes are, things like onions and garlic. They help restore your blood sugar levels. Bitter gourd, very effective for regulating your blood sugar levels. And then leafy greens. Again, leafy greens are extremely important for your health. eat as many leafy greens as you can because they stop your blood sugar levels from spiking and keep your your sugar levels normal. So type 2 diabetes, completely preventable. But I don't know who's online looking at this. There might be any doctors in here, any MDs. Okay, good. But I don't know who's online, Steven. Got folks out in the no. You can't put me on YouTube, man. I do not give you permission to put me on YouTube. All right, so stevia. Any of y'all familiar with stevia? Any of y'all grown stevia? Stevia is not that hard to grow. It's related to sunflowers. It could be weedy if you really wanted it to be. It's a natural sweetener. It's a digestive aid. It hastens wound healing when you topically apply it. And this is making a spit poultice. You go out there, you find your stevia, you chew it up, and you put it on a wound, and it helps stop bleeding and that sort of thing. It regulates improper blood sugar levels. It's good for weight control, and it's an appetite suppressant because it fools the brain. We're addicted to sugar in this country. Absolutely addicted to sugar. So what stevia does is, since it's not a sugar, it's a glycoside. It fools your brain. It's 300 times sweeter than sugar. The sensation is 300 times sweeter than sugar. So it fools your brain and lets you know you've had enough sweet stuff for the day. Stop. It lowers high blood pressure. It's antimicrobial, and it's an oral tonic. Nephritis. I would have never guessed that kidney disease was like one of the top 10 killers in the country. I never would have suspected that. But I met a nephrologist some years ago, and we were speaking at a conference together. He talked about I did my herbs for health thing. He did his nephritis thing, and it was amazing. Because he was an actual MD, and he was restoring kidney function to his patients, like stage 4 liver failure type of stuff. You know, all he was doing is having them juice. And when I say juice, I don't mean going to the store and buying that sugar water that has some fruit looking flavor to it or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he had them use a masticating juicer. You know what a masticating juicer is? All right, some people have those spinning juicers with the blade, or they use blenders. Don't use that stuff if you're trying to be healthy, because all these things in the plants are antioxidants. So when you use that juicer that's a spinning blade, or you use the blender, you're introducing oxygen to your antioxidants. What does that do? It cancels them out. It's like adding a negative number to a positive number. Boom, you get 0. You don't want to add to 0 with your phytochemicals, your nutrients and all that. Anyway, he had them use a masticating juicer, which has a turning screw inside of it that crushes the juice out of the fruits and vegetables. He was restoring their kidney function. And the way it works is, you've got 1 million nephrons, or little filter pulps, inside of your right kidney, and you've got 1 million in your left kidney. Those fail. You enter kidney failure when those things get clogged up. He was clearing the clogs by having people juice. Now, unfortunately, I can't find this dude's research. I don't know what happened to him, but I know there's been a lot of naturopathic type people come up missing. That's why I don't like to be recorded or put on YouTube, because I don't want to have to use my army escape and evasion techniques to get away from folks. All right, so cirrhosis. Yeah, my sister passed away from this, and it really hurts to see this. Your liver is a self-healing organ. So if you're stressing it out so much that its healing cannot keep up with the damage, you messing up. There's another word I want to use, but again, I don't know who's watching this, Steve. But you messing up real bad if you're damaging your liver like that. But luckily, since it's a self-healing organ, you can use some things to help it out. Things like rosemary. Anybody else know what, does anybody know what else rosemary is real good for? For what? That's true. I'm talking about health right now. Huh? Maybe. There's something else. Wait, let me scroll up. Bloop, 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 bloop. Memory. And rosemary, you don't need to eat it. You can smell it and it gives you all the benefits. That's why that aromatherapy stuff is interesting. All right, then milk thistle. And then the other thistles too, like artichokes. Artichokes are a thistle. Stinging nettle, we saw that was good for Alzheimer's disease, the Urtica dioica. Turmeric, again, that's been brought up several times. Artichokes, because they're related to the milk thistle. And there's a thistle we have in Texas called, what is it? It's Cirsium horridulus or something like that. The big yellow or purple flowered thistles, you can eat those like artichokes. And then chicory. And chicory is like, it's like a dandelion, but it's blue. And people feed it to their rabbits or their tortoises. Rheumatoid arthritis. This was near and dear to me because I had this really, really bad. What was that? Like 2017 or something. I had moved from Prairie View, where I was a greenhouse manager, and I had 17 acres of organic research plots I was dealing with. So I was always out in the sun on the back of a tractor, eating fresh fruits and vegetables that were organically produced that I grew. I went from that to working downtown San Antonio, working in an office with no sunlight, like a little mushroom. And then I was eating downtown San Antonio food, and Shiloh's is really good, but you shouldn't eat it like on a regular basis. But yeah, I was sitting at my desk one day and my foot started hurting, and I looked at it and I was like, "Foot, what's wrong with you?" And it was like, I was like, all right. The next day, the other foot was hurting, and then the next day, my fingers were hurting, and then my wrists and my ankles, and it just started bouncing between joints. And I was like, okay, something's wrong. And I hadn't been to the doctor at this point since 2004, maybe, because the last time I went to the doctor, my head was hurting and I was nauseous. I went to the doctor at that Racine University I went to grad school at, and I asked her, "Hey, doc, what's wrong with me?" And she was like, "We don't know." Hey, you went to school, you learned all this stuff, and you don't know what's wrong with me? And so she was like, "It seems like you've got a inflamed artery in the side of your head." And I'm like, "All right, well, what causes that?" She's like, "We don't know." I'm like, "Okay." So what I did is, I've got a scientific brain. I sat around and I thought about when my head hurt the worst and when I was nauseous the most, and it was when I was using a cell phone. And so I put the cell phone down for a week, and that pain started to subside. And then I went back to using it the next week after that, and my head started hurting again, and I was nauseous. So I stopped using cell phones, and I didn't have a cell phone again until like last year because I went to Italy and I needed a way to contact people. But anyways, so I hadn't been to the doctor in many years. I went to the doctor. Doctor ran some tests, put me on prednisone, and I was in enough pain where I actually took prednisone. Anybody know what prednisone is? It's evil. It's the devil. Don't take that stuff. It had my whole face swollen up like a tomato or something. I was a woman. I was a lady repellent. I was so ugly. It was awful. Don't take prednisone. Don't do it. Bad, bad. Anyway, I took prednisone, but I was still in a lot of pain and I was really, really weak. And so at that point, I had been teaching this class for over 10 years. So I was at a conference in St. Louis, and it was really cold. It was snowing out, and I got up to my hotel room, and I was so weak that it took both hands to open up the door. I'm like, all right, Justin, you got to stop this. You've been helping people with these herbs for years. People come in and tell me that, huh? Really? Okay, we're going to ignore you. You have to get out. All right. So anyway, I was like, you've been helping people for this amount of years. You would be a hypocrite if you don't fix yourself. So I sat down on the computer and I thought about what was really wrong with me, and I was like muscle weakness and deficiency, and it came back with vitamin D. And I'm like, oh, I've been in the office. I haven't been outside. I haven't been doing anything. So I did the Cliff Huxtable thing. I walked 2 miles uphill through the snow both ways to go to the pharmacy to get some vitamin D, and my strength restored itself overnight. And gradually the pain went away. If you get rheumatoid arthritis, you think of it as cancer of your synovial cells, or the cells that lubricate your joints. Some things that are good for it are vitamin K. And Vitamin K is why, oh shit, is why I eat brie, because you don't get it out of everything. So I eat brie. You get it from Jarlsberg cheese. You can get it from natto if you're familiar with Japanese food. But vitamin K by itself causes apoptosis of the synovials, the extra synovial cells that are not dying. Turmeric and black pepper, bromelain, propionase, and the other proteolytic enzymes very effective against rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm going to rush because I was informed that I need to shut up. This is the disease triangle. In plant pathology, we learned that you cannot have disease. Do we have a pointer? We don't have a pointer. You can't have disease without these three legs on the triangle. You have to have a susceptible host, you have to have a virulent pathogen, and you have to have a conducive environment. If you knock any one of those legs off of the triangle, it's not a triangle and you don't have disease. Which one of these do we have the most control over? The environment. Because the environment of each of our individual cells is extremely important, and we need antioxidants to support them. What's that? In medieval warfare, if you had a castle, you had one huge wall in front of you. This is my wall. It's right in front of me. What are my enemies going to do? They're going to do what? If you got one wall right in front of you, they're going to go around it. They're going to flank you. Somebody knows how to play chess. You need a whole force field around your health. And you build that force field by reading the handout that I'm going to send y'all if you put your email on my sign-in sheet. Everybody sign my sign-in sheet? Because if you didn't sign the sign-in sheet, you're not going to get your handout. If you don't get your handout, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. I was telling people that you need between 9 and 20 different plant families a day in your diet to maintain that force field around your health. And then people started telling me, well, Justin, I don't know one plant family, so how am I going to do that? That's impossible. So I wrote down all the plant families and all the edible plants within those families. That's the handout. So there's some other stuff that you can eat that's good for you, like avocados. Those fight breast cancer, prostate cancer, and others. They aid in absorption of antioxidants from other fruits and vegetables. Now, what cuisine or what culture brought us avocados? Mexico. What other thing did Mexico bring to us? What was the last one? Not before that. After that one. You said something. Tomatoes. What's the best source of tomatoes that we can get in our diet? It's like a pure form of lycopene, which is the main active ingredient. Not salsa, something more concentrated than that. Look, I'll give you a hint. Mexico didn't invent it, and we used to order it on Friday nights. Pizza. Think about what pizza is. It's a layer of highly concentrated lycopene under a layer of what? Greasy ass cheese. You could go out there, you could buy all the lycopene tablets you want and take that whole bottle, and is it going to be available in your body? Not at all, because it needs oil. Avocados are rich in oil. So it makes sense that a culture that gave us tomatoes would also give us avocados. The perfect delivery system. Anyway, avocados lower your bad cholesterol. Citrus fruit. And understand when researchers are researching stuff, they're trying to be as efficient with their dollars as possible. So what part of the citrus fruit are they doing their research on to find these phytochemicals? The skin. The skin and the seeds. That's where the more concentrated phytochemicals are in the citrus. What do we eat? The pulp. We're doing ourselves a disservice. So now go buy you some organic citrus, and I'm going to mention South Texas citrus or South Texas produce not because they're my friends or anything, but they do sell organic citrus and it's pretty high quality. You can eat the skins on organic citrus and get all the benefits. I don't eat the skin on grapefruit, and you have to watch out with grapefruit because even though they help with weight loss and all that, if you're taking heart medicine and you eat grapefruit, you're setting yourself up for failure, so don't do that. Vitex, and this is for the ladies only. Dudes, don't listen to this. There's already been a 60% reduction in the amount of testosterone in males in this country the last 40 years. You don't need Vitex. Stay the hell away from this. Unless you got a girlfriend or a wife or something. But Vitex is good for PMS, fibrocystic breast problems, PCOS, fertility problems, menstrual acne, general menstrual problems, like as in pain, excess hair. And this one gets me in trouble because I don't have good filters. And I'll be out and about in the world and I'll see a lady with all that hair on her lip and I'll recommend Vitex. And they'll be like, shut the hell up. Or, some people take it in good humor, but I'm just trying to help. I don't mean no harm. It is also good for endometriosis. Vitex agnus castus. It's flowering. It's flowering all up and down the highways right now. It's got the purple flowers. Yep, the purple flowers and the palmately compound leaves. It looks like those shirts that the young people wear. The leaf. Yeah, that's what the leaves look like. It's palmately compound. This is all the research. And notice that most of this research is in other countries because this country doesn't care about women for some reason. All right, so peppers. I didn't eat peppers for a long time until I was in my early 30s because when I was little, can you imagine me at 6 years old running around being a little know-it-all about the plants, pointing at every plant and telling my big cousins that this is that and this is the other thing and that's a pecan and that's a marigold and all this, and they're like, oh yeah, well those peppers over there, they're magic. If you eat them fast enough, they're sweet like candy. I mentioned earlier I'm a Virgo, right? We're sweet, innocent, paranoid, and gullible. So I went over there, I ate those peppers as fast as I could, and I was crying and crying. So I didn't eat peppers from that age until I was in my 30s when I took a class and it changed my mind about peppers. But eat as many hot peppers as you can stand because they help prevent cancer, they relieve pain, they relieve sinusitis and congestion, they reduce inflammation, they soothe your intestines. Let me read that again. It soothes your intestines. What's everybody's complaint about peppers? Say it. When they come out. Now, that is a very important issue because people say that it burns going in and it burns coming out. If it burns coming out, it's showing you that you have inflammation in your lower GI tract. So address the inflammation. Don't blame the peppers. And peppers help you burn fat. And these are the chile peppers. Turmeric. You still want me to stop talking? We have another one about to get started. They're not important. All right. So anyway, I'll end on this one. Turmeric is a natural substance so smart it can tell the difference between a cancer cell and a normal cell. It's so powerful it can stop chemicals in their tracks, chemical exposure. It's so strong it can protect DNA from lethal doses of radiation. Curcumin, or the active ingredient in turmeric, has powers against cancer so beneficial that drug companies are rushing to make drug versions or weaponized versions. It's antiseptic, antibacterial, it detoxifies your liver, prevents Alzheimer's, it's anti-inflammatory, it slows MS, it's a painkiller, it's good for weight management, fights depression, is good for arthritis, it speeds wound healing, aids in healing of psoriasis and eczema, it's good. One of the very few things that's effective against pancreatic cancer. What's your chance of survival if you get pancreatic cancer? 4%. It's good against leukemia and it prevents metastasis. It keeps cancer from jumping from one place to another. The problem is we don't use turmeric properly in this country, and most of the turmeric that we buy is adulterated. It is yellow starch. Okay? If you want turmeric, buy the roots, boil the roots, skin the roots, cut the roots up, pack them in salt to dry them, to desiccate them, grind the root into powder, and that's your turmeric. That's how they do it in the rest of the world, where they know how to use it. I'm gonna leave off here because my time is up, but I've got a bunch more stuff. So all these things are great. Be friend. Oh! I brought elderberry cuttings. I brought elderberry cuttings. So if y'all want elderberry cuttings, and these are wholesale elderberry cutting size because the power company decided to go and cut my backyard. They cut all my season's worth of growth, so it was several thousands of dollars worth of elderberry harvest I lost this year. So I'm taking lemons and making lemonade. And we're having this class. I could talk about sambucus or elderberry, but y'all know about elderberry, right? It's great. It's an antiviral. It destroys all that stuff. Y'all can come get some cuttings. Y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints? If you have any complaints, please get them off your chest now. We can fight about it and get it over with. No questions? Oh.
Any other opportunities to unfinish this? Do you have
If y'all invite me to speak, I'll come and pop up like a mushroom. You give me a venue and I will be here.
Do a June workshop in Gardopia.
We could do that.
You're coming to EcoCentro at some point, don't forget.
Yes, we're gonna do a class at EcoCentro. So
Stephen and I will fight over it.
any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
We throw turmeric here, or is it not right? You can grow
You could grow it.
tropical.
Yeah, just I would give it a little shade. Keep it a little moist. It grows the same as ginger. If you could grow ginger, you can grow turmeric. If you can grow turmeric, you can grow galangal. So you can grow it.
What's the plant behind you? Grow it myself.
That's a similar triloba. That is pawpaw. It is also called the Indiana banana. It is a temperate zone tropical fruit. So the fruit tastes like, to me, it tastes like a cross between banana and pineapple. It's really tasty. I brought it in because I didn't want it to be sitting in my car, heating up and drying up and all that. So, I was trying to be respectful of my little plant that I got from Steven yesterday. Thanks, Steven. I love you, man. Yes, it is. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, so type 3 diabetes. That's where they're looking at sugar as the reason that we have diabetes because we're eating so much of it, and they're saying now that it crystallizes in our brain. And so I've got to really look deeper into that research because the way I was taught, it was the amyloid plaques caused by the aluminum. But now they're trying to say it's sugar, and I really need to see like, and this is beyond my pay grade, right? Because I'm just a plant guy, Give me some plant questions. But I really need to see if they've taken this and done like some spectrography to see what minerals are in those amyloid plaques. That's what I want to see. But yeah, take care of your brain. Your brother said what?
My brother said the military gave it to him.
She brings up a good point. Any other military veterans in here? Few of us. So the Army experimented on all of us, okay? We went through and we got injected with a bunch of stuff all the time. In Army, please don't come after me because I'm sweet and innocent. But yeah, they were injecting us with these vaccines all the time. Like every 6 months, we would have these it's like we were preparing to deploy all the time. And so every time we went through there, they shot us with something different. All the people I was in the military with are sick with something. I had the rheumatoid arthritis. I've had, you know, some of my one of my roommates, in fact, he's had a bunch of issues where like well, he can hardly get around now. So I don't doubt that the military experimented on us because that's what they've always done. That's what they've always done to soldiers. We're cheap guinea pigs. So did I get immunized against COVID? I'm not a stupid person. Sorry, I'm not a stupid person. I looked at that. I looked at the remember I said I don't have good filters, so don't hold it against me, okay? I looked at the that immunization and saw and looked at the efficacy of it, and it wasn't effective. So when you're giving people something and it's not doing the job that it says, because if you get a smallpox vaccine, you're not getting smallpox, right? If you get a COVID vaccine or if you get a flu vaccine, you're going to get COVID or flu. I looked at that efficacy and I said, there's something else going wrong there. And now they're having all these issues with young people falling over from heart disease and all sorts of stuff. So no, I didn't get that vaccine.
For further questions, I want to take it offline. We have 2 more presenters going, so, but thank you again.
Elderberry cuttings.
Thank you so much.
And where's my sign-in sheet?
Grab your pen real quick.
Oh, yeah, you can have this. I didn't want this in. Oh, well, you want. Well, I was gonna send that to just the.
My apology with Luis Santiago and the other representative having produce distribution with Jamie Gonzalez. I'm gonna make this dirty. Go ahead and get you. Oh. You wanna get them dressed up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn.
So I haven't worked with- Yeah. Okay.
Because
Okay. Set a timer.
Well, I mean, it's scary, like, not, yeah, a little bit.
do you want a mic to talk through the microphone setting? It's up to
No, I'll just talk regular.
It's right here.
Okay. No,
Help you project.
okay.
Let us know when you're ready. So everything comes up.
All right. Come on in. We're waiting for you to show up. No, I'm just kidding. Good. All right, everyone. I'm about to start talking about fungi here. You guys good in the back? We got the camera going. Everything's good. Cool. Well, thank you all for coming out to the Food and Nature Conference to learn from a bunch of nature lovers and nature nerds like myself. I hope y'all are nature nerds too. And so I'm going to be talking to you about some nerdy stuff here, but pretty awesome stuff, which is mycology. And I know earlier today you already had a talk on cultivation, and I'm going to take that a step further because I've done a lot of the cultivation already, but I wanted to show you what happens when you have cultivation skills and you take those skills and then you apply mycology out in the actual landscape as opposed to just growing to get some mushrooms, right? That's just the first step. There's way more beyond that. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I just want to give a quick introduction. My name is Luis San Miguel, owner of MycoBuddy. It's just a one-man mushroom business that I've been doing for a couple years, educating everybody on nature, fungi specifically. And I've been growing and cultivating at a small scale for the past like 8 years or so. And I've just been sharing with this people because it's super fun, and it's changed my life to say the least, and has actually reconnected me back to nature. And that changed my life too. And I'm still on the journey. And here I am actually presenting this thing that I kind of got curious about years ago. So I think it's pretty awesome. But that's really where it comes from. It comes from me engaging with the organism, trial and error, reading books, watching videos, and seeing what happens. And I'm going to share some of my ideas, some of my explorations, and hopefully a couple of stories with you. And that'll help you kind of piece together maybe some of the other talks that you heard today and see how the fungi connects all of those different aspects together in the environment. So first, any of y'all tried to grow mushrooms before at all? Okay, cool. All right, y'all go look for mushrooms, forage, anything, go on walks, stuff like that. Okay, cool. So back to what he said, being active. If you want to get into this, you got to go outside. You got to go outside and find those mushrooms and walk around and try and find these beautiful fungi. But I'm going to introduce you to them if you haven't been introduced to mushrooms before, and talk about what these organisms are doing, how they do it. I can't tell you why exactly. I'm just very curious about it though. So we're going to talk about the ecology, and then we're going to move into cultivation as well. I'm not going to go in depth on cultivation, but I'm going to elaborate and expand on that more about the power of cultivation and all the different things that you can do once you learn how to grow some mycelium, you grow some mushrooms. And so this right here is a reishi mushroom that I found at Comanche Park on the southeast side of San Antonio. And I was able to capture it, take it back to my lab in my dark dungeon. No, I'm just kidding. Back into my lab, and I tinker with it, and I'm able to take a piece of the specimen that I found out in the wild, get it into a growing process, and then get it into a bag. And now I have reishi mushrooms popping out of this bag. So I'm gonna pass this around for y'all to get an up close look at it. Yes, ma'am.
It does look good. It's a little disgusting.
On the inside it does, yeah. But on the outside, it looks beautiful. Nice, it's got that lacquer finish to it. So what's happening with what's going on here, actually what's going on inside of the bag is what goes on outside in the environment, right? You have fungi moving through the environment, and they're the decomposers. They recycle all the organic matter, and they contribute to the food web, right? Because they break down, dead plants, dead animals, and things like that, and all those nutrients get recycled into the environment. Here on the left, actually, that is that reishi that you are looking at. So I found that on New Year's Eve, 2022, New Year's Eve, I went on a run, and I found these two actually the same day. And the one on the right, that's the reishi. Like I said, I was able to culture it up. And then here on the left is a wild oyster mushroom. Those grow here as well. So those are actually edible and, gourmet and stuff. And so I have that in my culture library too. But the fungi are making their way through the soil, and they're digesting all the wood and organic matter, and they're recycling that stuff. So that way all the other soil microbes can access that, especially the plants, right? And so if you look here inside this jar, you can see this root-like structures here. That's the mycelium growing. It is actually reaching for oxygen right now. But that's what's growing inside the soil, inside your potted plants, inside that bag, sometimes inside infected trees. And the mycelium is moving through a network like that, breaking down organic matter. But sometimes the fungi, the mycelial tissue like that, connects to the root systems of plants and trees. And they can act as an extension of the root system for that tree or plant to source more resources. And so these are some of the ectomycorrhizal, is what they're called, species that partner with trees and plants. On the left, you got some boletes. I don't know, have y'all ever seen any of these here in San Antonio? The boletes, yeah, so these are really cute. And the ones on the right, those are chanterelles. Those are highly prized gourmet mushroom. They do grow here. I've only seen them grow one season at McAllister Park. And that's that's all I'm going to tell you is at McAllister Park. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
So-
have one under my oak tree in Bernie.
wonderful, wonderful, because they love oak trees. There, you can find them around oaks. And these fungal networks are actually partnered up with the trees. And so they're breaking down and reaching more resources for the tree because the tree can't really break stuff down. The trees in plant life need water soluble, nutrients to be able to take that up. And so that's what the fungi do. And what's happening here is there's enzymes being excreted and all that mycelium, the fungal tissue you see in the bag and the jars, all that stuff is breaking down all of this old wood debris, right? And it's taking that at the micro level and then it's building more of itself and continues to consume all the organic matter that's in the area. I don't know if you can see it. It's very fine. That's a close as I can get picture with my lenses, but you can maybe see a few droplets there. So those are the enzymes that get sweated out onto food source, either wood, cardboard, soybean hulls, whatever you're growing on, logs, and that's what starts to take apart the wood. All right, it's a very important process. And then eventually, when it consumes all of its resources, whether it be a stump, like in this case, a log, trees, grow kit and stuff like that. Once it gets to a certain point and the environmental conditions change, then you have mushrooms that sprout out. They fruit and they release their spores. This was also, all these pictures are from San Antonio, by the way, just so there may be one or two, maybe one from Bernie, I don't think, but all of these are from the parks around here in San Antonio. So there is mushrooms out there for us.
Was that turkey tail?
This one is turkey tail. You can try to eat it, but you'll be chewing on it for a long time. This one's mostly used for teas and extracts. Yeah, so. This one, Ramaria, it's like a coral fungi. That's a fungi. It's crazy. That grows at, I found that one at Phil Harburger Park. And it's releasing spores. It's doing the same thing. I heard this one's edible, but that's just a really, really close-up picture. That it was only like maybe that tiny. So, but it looks cool, right? So, yeah, it's a coral. It's a kind of the common description of that coral-like fungi, club fungi, cap and stem, shelf fungi. And so those are the different physical characteristics of it, but they're still doing the same process in the soil. That mycelium is working through the soil, and then you get to see what it turns into. Sometimes it turns into that, or it turns into these over here. You never know. So I have a question over here.
Yeah, does that sometimes look more jelly kind of like?
Not this one. There is a jelly-like fungi. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's the name will come to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does look like jelly. It's all squishy. Common name is called witch's butter, but the other name will come to me at some point. But we have all these different fungi popping up in the environment. But what's most important is the fungal network that's hidden in the soil, whatever it is that it's growing on, and that's redistributing all the nutrients and resources. All right, this is my little drawn up life cycle, pretty much a gist of what is happening in the soil or the process in general. You have the spores that are being released. They turn into the beautiful white mycelium that you've seen in the jars and inside the bags. That starts to break down organic matter, wood chips, cardboard, mulch, you name it, anything organic, it starts to break that down. And then eventually fruits, mushrooms, drops more spores, and then the cycle just continues. But as cultivators, what we do and we start engaging with the mushrooms is we wedge ourselves into different parts of this process. So one of the parts of the process would be finding the fruit body that's mature and taking a tissue sample of it. And then that would bring us over to the mycelium and so on and so forth. And what I mean by that is tissue sample is I would take that mushroom and take a little piece of it and put it on an agar dish in a sterile environment. And that's where lab work comes in. There's a little cultivation's a bit deeper. We're gonna touch on that though. And that's how we capture the species from outside, from the wild, is getting a tissue sample from that. Or you can start with spores, other things like that. So, but that's the life cycle in general. of most fungi. That's what they're doing out in the environment. And as cultivators, what we do when we start to engage with that is we control for these variables. We try to control the environment, just like I'm doing right here. I have a little clear plastic bin letting in light. It's got some holes for some passive air exchange. It's got saturated perlite in the bottom to, help with the humidity, and it's translucent, so it lets in light. And there's a little bit of oxygen there. And that's a greenhouse environment is the ideal environment for growing and fruiting mushrooms. So you remember that. And also remember that mycelium just takes apart wood. It unlocks the wood because there's a lot of resources, because the trees and the plants, they take up all the soil. They not take up the soil, but they take up all the minerals and resources. They form really big, hard, dense trunks. All the lignin and cellulose that's built up there eventually needs to be recycled, right? And so they're able to take apart the sugar when it comes to that. So life cycle out in the wild, that's what's happening. So I got any questions on anything? This is real general, real brief. We're going to jump into some other stuff here. Yes.
Of it, are you doing anything to it or are you just putting it in area?
No, so her question was what I do when I take a piece of the mushroom. And so what I do, which I'll show you more in the cultivation part, I do take that and I work in front of a flow hood. And so I have sterile air blowing over my workspace. And so that way I can open up my agar plates without having to worry about airborne contaminants falling on my plate and stuff like that. So yes, I do take that tissue and I work with it in a controlled environment, so to speak. And there's different ways that you can control for it, but I'll go over that in the cultivation portion. Any other questions? Anybody? Come on, clicker. Okay, cultivation. This is the best part, probably the most exciting part. I'm just going to talk about how awesome it is. Well, for one, you can grow your own mushrooms. Obviously, that's usually where we like to start, is learning how to grow our own mushrooms, but also the idea of just being able to grow your own food and be able to pass something around in a class that it's just so interesting and so beautiful to be able to work with this organism. Not only that, the plants and just everything that we work with. And so I'm going to try to expand on that a bit with cultivating. And also, not only producing your own mushrooms, but the material itself, this mycelium. There's so many different things that you can do with it. And hopefully the things that I show you get your brain going and you'll get excited about engaging with the fungi and maybe want to learn how to cultivate as well. So, and the most important part is the last point there is you can create more cultivators. So in a sense, say if you all, each and every one of you are like, hey, this class is awesome, Lewis is great, he taught me how to cultivate, and then all y'all start growing mushrooms, that's like a bunch of people that know how. And so education became the primary kind of path for me, just sharing this information with everyone. And there's also the commercial side. You can grow a whole bunch of mushrooms, sell them to restaurants. There's that aspect. There's the remediation side, using it for environmental restoration and stuff like that, which is what I kind of start drifting towards. There's so many things that you can do, even in your backyard and in your kitchen, so to speak, with this organism to benefit, your health, your landscape and everything. But this part right here is like, this is where it's at. Once you get here and past there, there's so much you can do, again, like I said. And so that's me taking a piece of turkey tail, just taking a little piece of it, placing it on an agar dish. That's the flow hood I was talking about. The filter is like this thick. So, and it blows fresh air over the workspace. So I'm taking that from the wild. I see this mushroom that I find that has medicinal value. And I'm like, hey, let me take this home. Let me grow my own of it. There's plenty of it out in the environment. When we have rain, of course, that's another tricky part about it is the environmental conditions. You're up against that too. And with that, you can actually take spore prints, just like seed saving. But with the cultivation skills, you can take those spore prints and you can start them again and start the mycelium to grow again. And you can grow these mushrooms again. These are chestnut mushrooms. And so, what's that?
How do you get them? Is there any magic that you have to do, or they do that naturally?
Magic, I love it. Yes, there's a certain spell that you have to say, an incantation. No, I'm just kidding. all you do is basically, where that mushroom's at, you would just take the fruit body and you just break it off your block and you just place it pore side down or gill side down, and it'll just drop spores just on its own. And then just dry them out, and it's like I said, it's like seed saving, but you need to rehydrate them and start them again and get healthy tissue growing out. And so that's where the cultivation kind of gets a little bit more, a little bit deeper there. So just some stuff you can do. Even if you buy a mushroom kit already ready to go, you just cut it open and get your mushrooms, or the mushroom blocks that you can pick up from Gardopia. Those mushrooms there, you can take tissue samples from those mushrooms. You could take spore prints from those mushrooms. You can take those blocks and do more of what I'm going to talk about here, but we're not there yet. Yes, sir. What's going on?
The question, I know that mostly what mushrooms are growing on, like for the carbon rich, like desiccated wood fibers and all that. Is there any kind of mushroom that thrives in like a nitrogen rich, like fresh cut grass or fresh cut tree branches or anything like that that will live off of that and thrive off of processing that instead of just like the carbon?
Well, they're eating the carbon, and it would probably just take time for, like, say you said, fresh cut grass. There would be a certain time when the fungi would actually start to eat the grass. So it would have to get to a certain level of decomposition, and then the fungi would then eat it. It wouldn't. Right. Well, that's where I guess you can say parasitic fungi come in, because they eat the living stuff that's still full of nitrogen. There's that aspect, but I don't know of a specific fungi that's, because they're so adaptable that they can kind of, the temperature extremes, there could be fungi in many different places, but I do not know of any that favor that environment that you described. Okay, cool. Got it. So back to the spores, and you can do that with almost any mushroom. Take spore prints.
Does it have to
Okay.
be fresh? I mean, does it have to?
Yes.
So we,
Yeah, what hap-
dry it out in the wild.
Well, to take a
pick it and do it, so you got dried so you tell. or-
Right, and in order to take a spore print, you want to do that like that, you want to do it fresh, but you can grab specimens from around the wild, and you can take the dried gills and try and start them again that way. That way, though, is a little bit more risky because you got a higher risk of contamination, and so that's more in the cultivation side of things. So if you get clean tissue, say you get a tissue sample of a fresh specimen, or if you started out the spores themselves and they start growing onto the plate, you take them and you broadcast them, and you basically bump up the biomass of this organism. So basically you're doing is just feeding it a bunch of food, right? In this case, I'm feeding it some sterilized and hydrated grains. And each one of those grains is going to become an inoculation point when I add it to some sawdust or sawdust in the bag over there, or if I'm adding it to some wood chips, or if I'm going to take this jar of mycelium and sterilize 10 other jars, take that jar and then like make more. And so I just start spreading the mycelium. So you can expand your mycelium pretty quickly when you learn to cultivate some basic skills. There on the left, that's what the jar looks like. This is what the jar looks like after like 5 months of that. So just FYI, that's been in there for a while, but that's grain spawn. That's what we use to inoculate our mushroom kits. Sometimes we do the straw kits as well with the sawdust, straw, wood chips, things like that. That's a starting point. But then we get into the bags here, which are the bags I pass around that have the reishi. That is usually sawdust and soybean hulls. It's kind of a standard mixture together. And you add mushroom tissue to that, and the mushroom tissue, the mycelium, begins to bind to that and start to break that all down, just like it does out in the environment in the wild. And eventually, when you control for the conditions, you can make really beautiful mushrooms come out. That is not the name of the mushroom. I can't believe I didn't change that. It's actually Hericium erinaceus. I was copy pasting the things because I got the right size. But anyways, that's not turkey tail. That is lion's mane. That's a very delicious mushroom, highly medicinal, and I think it tastes the best out of all of them. And you can do this with these cultivation skills. And also, if you pick up some spent blocks from Gardopia, if you soak them, you could get another flush like this. Who knows? Here's another thing you can grow: some beautiful blue oyster mushrooms, very delicious. I'm just like showing you these so the mushrooms can like get into your visual part of your brain because of they're so cool and they look so smooth and they just have these weird characteristics to them. These are delicious too, like they all are and stuff. So you can grow all these different fungi with cultivation skills, right? But you can also grow them with just some of the things I'm going to show you next, which doesn't require you to learn the agar stuff or the crazy jars or anything like that. That's if you want to take it a level deeper. And of course, these beautiful reishi mushrooms. There's no filter, just water. I just rinse them off. Yes. Whatever they're there, you can feel them. Those are what they feel like when they're fresh. That's cool. So yeah, you can do this very beautiful stuff. So learn to cultivate. Be sure to check out my website because I have my cultivation classes on there, or find a local mushroom farmer, local mycologist in your area, and they can help you out. And if you want to take it another step further with your cultivation skills, try your hand at cultivating some cordyceps. That's an entomopathogenic fungi. It's the one that parasitizes the ants. This one, there was no ants harmed in the growing of these fungi. There was all some rice and a nutrient broth, but these are much different. They're a different process than what I showed you in the bags there. So similar processes, but they have different environmental requirements, right? So now I'm going to start taking the cultivation stuff and start expanding it off into these fun little projects. This is just a gray sterilite bin that I drilled some holes on the side, and all I did basically with lasagna straw and the grain spawn that I have that I passed around, and got a whole bunch of mushrooms. Look, that's crazy. Off a straw. It was just straw. What's that? The time lapse for that, I'd say probably like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, roughly. The ideal conditions because they were inside my grow room, and I have humidification and exhaust like going constantly and light, and so look at all those mushrooms. Pretty awesome. So, and it's pretty low tech. But we're gonna move into the garden with all this stuff now. And one of the things about that is once you got your food source, you got your medicine from growing your mushrooms, that whole block it's still alive. It's mycelium. It's taking apart all this wood. So there's all these nutrients, and again, the resources, they're locked up inside of this tissue here. And you can redistribute that back into the environment. You could throw it in your compost. If you have like a worm farm, you could feed it to the worms. Throw it in your garden beds. You can sheet mulch. You can make patches. And I'm gonna go over a couple of those things here. But also it adds nutrients to the soil, but also aeration, because that sawdust and stuff gets really fluffy and it just becomes very airy and light. So if you need to add some organic matter to the soil, adding some of these blocks is ideal. Because it's not big, huge chunks of wood, ideally you don't want that. This is very fine particulate, and it's already been run through by the mycelium. So yes, I have a question.
How would you like break up the whole block, like crush it into pieces and then throw it in, or how would you suggest using it?
Okay, that depends on kind of what project you got going on. And so I'll talk about that when we talk about the patches, because sometimes with the patches, I've always learned to like crumble it all up and spread it, but I do something a little different, and I'll show that here. So, but also you can not only doing the blocks and the mushrooms and stuff, but it's the symbiotic networks. The mycorrhizal fungi are very important when it comes to your food and planting your food. They may not necessarily produce mushrooms, but there's an inoculum that you can buy that you can inoculate your saplings with or your seedlings with before you transplant them out. And that's another way to get fungi, incorporated into your growing systems or into your garden. And I just want to show you this real quick because this is super cool. I'm just going to throw a bunch of ideas, excuse me, a bunch of these ideas out here. So reishi kits, I made some reishi kits, got my reishis out of them, and then I carved out the inside of the block that they were growing out of, and then I dried this out. And so now this is, the outside becomes hydrophobic because of the mycelium dies on the outside, but then that whole thing is biodegradable, like completely. And if I were to plant that in the ground, that sawdust, that container will basically absorb water and it'll be a nice water reservoir there in the root zone of that. And then also the compost that's in there is from leaves from the oak tree, which dropped that acorn. And I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more, but anyways, these are different pots. But just the idea of continually using the material, it's not broken down and it's not done until it's soil. How about that? It's not done until it's soil, because eventually it's going to become soil, right? Broken down by the worms, all the other insects in the soil, things like that. Or you can just leave it out, especially for like succulents that don't need a whole lot of water, nice and dry, and it keeps them small because they can only get so big inside that pot. But anyways, it's one way to use this stuff. Or you can just break it up, throw it in your compost. Actually, I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. Gardening, mulching, just regular sheet mulch. You can do that. Break up the kit itself. Like depending on what you're trying to, like you were asking earlier, you can break the kit up. This was from a straw kit. And so I got a few little fruitings over here. But if anything, it's to get the organic matter inside of the soil and the resources in the soil. I'm not really looking to start growing mushrooms in my garden, but if I'm lucky, they may establish themselves, or I may get a little bit of mushrooms out of what I put out there. So that's one way to use these blocks, or use mycelium to sheet mulch. So again, this is a different bin, different mushroom. It was well, actually, no, it's the same bin, but a different mushroom. So this was a wild oyster. Actually, the oyster I showed you in the beginning, that's that oyster. I'm trying to keep this all closed loop. And I did the same thing. I layered all the straw and I got my mushrooms out of there. And then I took that material because it's still alive. The network is still alive and thriving. And what I did was I just sheet mulched around the base of a tree, a lemon tree that died in the freeze and came back as a shrub. And put that around there, basically just threw down some cardboard, mycelium, some more cardboard and some mulch. And then I was really going hard, and I took the mushrooms and even put them spore side down so they'll sporulate on the mulch. So I just like really try to get these mushrooms to grow over here. But I mean, I wasn't really gonna eat them. So, because they were a little too waterlogged. But throwing this stuff outside and getting it into the soil, right? Hopefully you can kind of get the idea. And then I think we had another freeze. I can't remember, but I came outside and I missed the fruiting when it first started. So I got the back end of the fruiting. So I actually got a fruiting off of this patch that I put out there, and it was really dense. But it dried out because I guess I just didn't check on it. But I actually got some mushrooms out of that patch. So you can throw these kits out in your garden and just kind of see what happens. Eventually it'll, get reincorporated into the soil, which is ideal. So the light's a little dark there. You can also trench around the borders of your garden beds, or you can also inoculate logs and, make those the borders, and having those there help with a little bit of moisture retention. And also those resources, like I said, that are inside of that mycelial network, that'll eventually get broken down, and those roots can reach down, and there is also a water reservoir as well. So just ideas, and then you can grow huge mushrooms. I think that's because if they get really soaked outside, they do this. Because other than that, like the bag won't hold that much water, or you'll get contamination, but somehow. But having them outside, you can grow mushrooms, but you're up against whoever was eating them, so you got to deal with them too. So you can feed the neighborhood or feed yourself. And but they also depend on the fungi as well to eat, and they get spores all over them, all the insects, and they go and spread the spores elsewhere, wherever it is that they go. But that's just a little bit of gardening. There's another reishi that I buried, a reishi block that I buried, and it came up. I usually bring it with me, but I couldn't cut it up. It was too pretty. Like there's no way. It was all shiny, and I was like, I couldn't. There's no way. But throwing the stuff out in your garden, trenching it, just crumbling it, throw it in your garden beds, or throwing these, if you can find them in bulk, throw them in your compost and get some fungal diversity going in your compost pile, because you got a lot of bacteria, you need a lot of nitrogen input. But if you throw the fungi in there, you'll have the fungi to start and initiate that degradation process with the woody material, because the woody material is the hardest stuff to break down. That's why we're sifting the compost to get all the woody stuff out and get the fine, softer particulate. And so all that woody material becomes food for the fungi. So it helps with that process, breaks that down a little bit quicker and softens it up for other microbes and stuff to move through. And then once you have your finished compost and you take it and make potting soil like I do, or you just spread it amongst your plants, those networks from these fungi are they'll be broken off and they'll just be embedded in there and stuff. So maybe they'll take off, maybe they won't, but you'll have fungi in your garden as well whenever you transplant it. Here on the left, that's some sawdust spawn. You just look, that's just that mycelium, really beautiful, really binding the soil together. It's great for erosion control too. And this was running through the compost pile. And again, I make my compost that I used, I think it's here next. Okay, I'll show this. So the squirrels, thank goodness for the squirrels, they go around and they bury their acorns and nuts and stuff. And if they forget about them, they pop up and they create little tree saplings. And so I saw the tree saplings one day and I was like, hey, this seems like a good idea. Let me just dig these up and inoculate them with some beneficial fungi to see what happens. And so I went around the property, dug up a bunch of these oak saplings, and then I inoculated them with the symbiotic fungi, and also using the compost from the oaks on the property, and then the mushroom block thing. I use that sometimes, but more so I did a bunch of just in a bunch of containers here, but just to get that fungal network established while it's still young. So I did that, and I use this mushroom for it. This is an earth ball, or a puff ball. I think it's a type of puff ball, and it's also a symbiotic fungi. It looks really weird. It looks like a bird's egg, but that whole thing turns to spore mass. And I found this up in Austin, and working with some people who reached out to me. For some reason, they knew I was a mycologist, and I went up there to check out what they were doing. And when I was on the property, I found this mushroom. I had no idea what it was. I did my research, and it turns out it's ectomycorrhizal, so it's a symbiotic fungi. So I use that to inoculate pretty much everything, not just this mushroom, but the inoculant. I use that quite a bit in gardening. But this I found up there in Austin. Look at all these beautiful trees. Hopefully I got some trees. Y'all need some trees that got mushrooms on them. And also with the boletes and the chanterelles, there's people that do that. They make slurries, put them in trees. So hopefully you get a chanterelle tree. There you go. There you go. Let me know. Let me know. I'll go out there. And oh, that's this little guy, wherever it's at. Trees on it. That's fine. He could hang out with y'all. Yeah, so mushroom, old mushroom block, compost from the oaks, beneficial fungi from the from that mushroom in Austin, or the inoculant, plus the acorns that dropped off the oak there in the property. So keeping it all contained, pretty cool. Patches, you can do patches too. So those blocks, you can answer her question again. You can cut them up here, throw down some cardboard, wet some cardboard, and throw down some mushroom blocks. I like to keep it chunky like this because if I crumble up the block a lot, I'm really disturbing the network quite a bit. And that network, all those little itty bitty pieces of sawdust, they have to recover. And then mycelium has to recover. It has to reconnect to the other pieces of sawdust and all that. So it's really disruptive. And so what I like to do is just keep it in big chunks. And I usually have a bread knife, and I just do like little bread slices of mycelium to keep it in big chunks like this. So that way, all that has to recover is the surface of those pieces, and each one of those pieces, they'll connect to one another too. And so I'll have this really big biomass of mycelium underneath all of this. But real quick, just going back, to help build your soil. If you want to plant somewhere, it's good, throw a patch there and just work the fungi into the soil, and then just move on, and you can plant in that area. And ideally, you do want them in a shady area that's got a little bit of humidity, because you do not want them drying out. So a patch is a cardboard, mushroom block, some more cardboard, and some wood and some water. That's it. That's a recipe for mushrooms outside. Well, that's a recipe for a patch. And this was by Hackberry. I established this one at the end of December, mid-December or the end of December. And then I had a flush, first flush by February. That was on the side. But then beginning of March, I had way more mushrooms coming out. So it actually survived the freeze. And because all of that mycelium, as it recovered, it started heating up and it was able to maintain itself over that temperature extreme. And they popped right out because they're blue oysters and they like the cold. So it kind of worked out. And then they lost their color for just being outside and stuff like that. So it's another way you can use this material, use the mycelium. Logs, that's another thing. I can keep going, but there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. The reason why I brought up that Pithelicus, that earth ball that I found up in Austin, I found it up when I went to talk to my friends up there, and they did a study with ligustrum. So they were using turkey tail, and they were inoculating ligustrum wood because it's an invasive species, and they also used it to terrace the side of a slope to try to slow down erosion and also get some water to percolate inside the ground. And all of that, that's all turkey tail on those logs all across there. And they have a paper. I need to actually make that available on the website so that way y'all can read it. But that's what I'm starting to get into is the invasive species control, larger scale stuff and stuff like this, is proof of concept that you can actually use the fungi and do it out in the field with field conditions. Because doing stuff out here is kind of difficult because you're this is in the hill country. It's pretty rugged out there, but the fungi were still able to do their thing and pop out. So removing an invasive species, using it to control for erosion and water retention, and also producing a highly medicinal mushroom at the same time. Pretty win. There you go. A couple wins there, like 4 or 5, right? And so, and that eventually becomes food for the soil, another win, and then food for microbes, another win. No, we'll keep going. But those were the fruit bodies that came off of it. You can see the different colors. They used oak and they used ligustrum. So the brown turkey tail, that was more on the oaks, and then those really pretty blue ones came off of the ligustrum. It's really interesting. And I'm not sure exactly what causes the pigmentation to shift like that, but it does vary depending on what it's growing on. That goes for kind of pigment kind of thing. Something. I didn't taste these. I took a tissue sample, but I don't know if I may have made tea. I don't remember. This was a couple years ago that I grabbed these. So
it's controlling the invasive species how?
Well, invasive species that are in an area, you have to go and you actually physically cut them down, but then they keep growing back. They disrupt the soil chemistry, right? And so what they were doing was, they were dropping the trees and inoculating all the wood, so that way that wood didn't cause a problem too.
I've
Right,
noticed that
so-
on my tallow too, because I chopped down a tallow
Mhm.
tree, and it naturally got fungal growth on it.
Right.
Mushrooms growing on it. I don't know what variety, I wrote pictures, but that tallow hasn't resprouted, but the other ones have.
Mhm.
So it must work, I guess.
Okay, cool. Well, there's an example of biological control, especially for trees and stuff like that, that we kind of don't want around. But also, if you happen to have any type of trees or anything like that on your property that are, detrimental, or they're a target to, cause more damage and stuff like that, yes, you can remove the tree, but you can also take all the limbs and stuff, have your arborist cut them up so that way you can inoculate them with mushrooms. They'll appreciate that. And you can also inoculate the stump as well. And so there's a bunch of different ways that you can incorporate the fungi out into the environment after you learn how to cultivate, or you take those mushroom blocks and do all this stuff here. So that kind of wraps up how to take a whole bunch of different approaches to mycology without having to learn the cultivation process. Again, a lot of that stuff you can do with the blocks that you pick up at Gardopia, or if I have some extra ones, just reach out to me. But one of the things I just wanted to emphasize was that if you want to, take away anything today, is remember that the fungi, they break down wood, they unlock wood, and they unlock the resources in wood. And so if you have that concept in your head when you're out out and about, moving stuff around your garden, around the land and stuff like that, know that the fungi are always out there and they're willing to do that for you, right? And again, once this information, if you found it useful, spread it to someone else. See someone else is cool. Tell them to come to the class, come check out my other classes. Just want to share as much of this information as I can. So hopefully one day y'all have a class about mushrooms and some other things that are like connected, so. I do my classes anywhere all around Central Texas. So here, Gardopia, Community Gardens, SAC, where's the Rose? Oh, she left. I'll be teaching at SAC at Eco Central, right? And so hopefully that what I've shared with you today and for everyone that's there watching, I don't know if they got to see my slides though, just these little bits of information. Hopefully you some of them kind of came together for you and you can see how much the mycelium is working underneath all the different disciplines of science and how they take care of the soil for us and they're underneath our feet and we can engage with them in many different ways. And I showed you just a few of those ways to engage with them. And I hope that this got you curious and will get you to looking into more information about mycology and about other aspects, of nature, organic gardening, permaculture, composting, bees, everything, all that stuff. It's all connected. And I just want to appreciate or say thank you to Stephen and them having me out here again at the Food and Nature Conference. I hope that all this mycelial information has been useful to you and engaging. And I hope to see you all at another class. And please do reach out to me if you have any questions or, use me as a resource on your mycological journey. So thank you. Appreciate it. Right. So, I didn't make it all up. Some of my references, right? And some information for you all.
How many edible or medicinal mushrooms species grow in Texas? Do you have any idea?
I do not. It's best to learn the commonly cultivated mushrooms first and then
Yes.
then venture off. Yeah, it's safer to do that because you kind of get to know them. They become familiar to you and something else, not to eat other stuff. So
Do you think bluebell mushrooms are poisonous?
I don't know. I don't like them. They're kind of boring. I'm over portobellos. Yeah. Are you cooking portobellos? My bad.
Yeah, that's my main dish.
The flims. Welcome.
It's not.
Mike.
All right, let's give it up for Luis.
Awesome. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah, I was trying to amazing. But they just don't use it, yeah.
Good. How are you? Thank you. It's so much fun. Thank you. We're gonna do a little bit of Korean food. All right, my friends, if we could, hi. How are y'all doing today? Good. I am so excited to be here in front of you all. And it's a miracle that we are all here in this room together at Trinity University. I truly believe that we all have this calling to be better, to be healthier. And so I'm gonna get you hopefully a little bit further in that when it comes to cooking. And as you can tell, I'm very Korean. And so I want to show you two dishes I grew up with. The star of our dish today is zucchini or squash. And so we did pick a lot of squash yesterday at Gardopia. We had some from Young Women's Leadership Academy primary. I did cook a lot right before I came here. And so y'all are going to share two dishes and I'm going to show you how I'm going to make them. After that, our third component of our dish is actually going to be dessert. And it's a beautiful, really simple zucchini bread. And so I'm going to share with you all how I made all this. And I hope that you all can enjoy squash more and grow squash at home. If you don't know this, in San Antonio, squash grows so well. So good. And this is actually a calabaza squash. It has a softer skin. It's waxier, but super fast to cook. And what I like to think whenever I cook anything is always, you don't want to cook it too long. You want it to have a slight crunch. Right? If you cook things more and more, it loses nutrients. And so you want it to have that slight crunch. And so in all the dishes today, you will feel that slight crunch. It's not supposed to be mushy. And that's what I really, really enjoy about Korean cooking is that they really do think about the nutrients and they really try to give their people high nutrient food. And so anyways, some really, really key ingredients whenever you're doing all Asian dishes is oil. So I am a little bit Americanized. I'm a lot Americanized. I was born here. And I love using olive oil, but you can use any neutral oil like canola oil or a vegetable oil. I tend not to use those in my kitchen. And whatever I'm sharing with you today is stuff that I would use in my kitchen. The eggs that I used today actually came from my chickens and my ducks. So it's really awesome. The bread that you'll be eating today actually came from also the eggs came from my chickens and my ducks. And so I think it's just a beautiful process for closing the loop in our food system. And so I hope you can enjoy. And I really want you all, and actually the whole public, whenever I bake, she was just talking to me about my cakes. I bring myself into my food, which is so awesome, right? I know things that people don't know about food, and I bring that into my food, which is, for example, we have here bleached bromated flour. How many of you have ever heard of bleached bromated flour? I know I'm going to go with my spiel on that. Yeah. Those are harsh chemicals, and we put that in our flour. So if you simply just make that choice, every time you go to the grocery store, it's a choice, right? Everything that we have up here is a choice. And choose unbromated flour. Man, what a difference that makes, right? That's one more chemical you don't have to worry about. And in all of this, I didn't use any bromated flour or bleached flour. And so just thinking about those things, and anytime you eat, right? Smelling your food. That's what makes a great chef, is using this sense instead of just looking. And so I had a chef one time tell me that, eating is 90% looking. And I don't believe that. I really, truly think that eating is a lot about education and how to taste food, what to taste for, and what tastes more of, I guess, the homemade, whenever I make chocolate chip cookies for my students, they're always like, it doesn't taste like the store. Well, duh. And so I'm so sorry. I will backtrack. And while I'm getting ready up here, I will backtrack a little bit about me. So I actually went to culinary school in South Korea. I had the wonderful opportunity to teach at a university called Woosung University in South Korea. And I simply went up to some of the chefs because there was a culinary school attached to this university. And I go, can I take some of your classes? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so I took as many culinary classes as I could. And it was amazing because I was a teacher during the daytime. And then I quickly changed into my culinary uniform and I ran to class at nighttime. And their classes were about 6 hours long. So it was pretty intense, but I loved every minute of it. And I wanted to be a chef ever since I was itty bitty. In elementary school, my very first story of actually putting something in the oven, because my family actually used the oven as storage. I don't know if any of your families ever did that. I would open it up and go, oh, there's towels in here. Oh, there's a box of something. And so I actually emptied the oven and I baked my first set of cookies, not knowing what was in cookies. I just got materials. I was 6. I was 6. I loved being in the kitchen. And what really drove me was I didn't have any cooks in my family. And so I wanted to cook good food, but I never had a good understanding of it. And so I really wanted to go to culinary school. So that's kind of my spiel. And so I eventually did go to culinary school after graduated from UT Austin with a biology degree. And then after culinary school, I actually got my master's in education. So, and then hopefully I'll be finishing up my PhD. I'm not in school right now, but hopefully I'll be finishing up my PhD. So I'm really excited to bring you all this scientific knowledge that really is in your food. Every day you make a choice. And I really encourage you all to make the healthier choice to the best of your knowledge, right? Because some person might not think that zucchini is healthy. I don't know what those Instagrammers and TikTokers out there, right? And so they're like, don't eat this, eat that. So, but you educate yourself the best. And the best way you can educate yourself is reading the scientific articles and following people who are masters at what they do. And so I'm going to go into share with you a couple of dishes. I know I don't want to talk too much because I can go on and on. I like talking. Teaching for 17 years in the classroom is very, very awesome. But at the same time, it can get tiring at times, but okay. All right, cool. So the first dish I actually want to share with you all is, it's actually a sauteed, very simple, a sauteed squash. And so I like calamazos, can't talk today. It's a squash. These are in our American grocery stores, but it has a softer skin. And so what we're going to do is, I don't know if we can turn on the fire in this particular classroom because I see 2 smoke detectors, but I'm going to go through the emotions with you. Dom was saying maybe I can just put it on very, very low. What do y'all think?
Whatever.
Okay. I know, exciting. That's why we're all here, right? And it's good to see. Let's, okay, so it's the initial ignition where we really do smell that smoke. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put this on medium heat. And if you don't know what medium heat, it's in the middle dial on your stove. And I want this pot, any pot, right? Your pan to get hot, not too hot. Whenever you're working with olive oil and you put a little bit of olive oil on your pan and it immediately smokes, you don't actually want to use it. It's reached its smoking point, right? And so you want to kind of start over, let that cool down, put it in a trash can or soak it up with some paper towels. And then you want to go ahead and restart. So you never ever want to heat olive oil too hot. I'm sure you all know this. And so what we're going to do, we're going to get at about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, and then I'm going to hear this actually crackle just a little bit. And if you want to know if it's heated enough, you can actually get a drop of water and place it on there. And if it pops just a little bit, it is ready. And I can actually see this fire's pretty strong. So I'm going to put it down. And I'm going to let this oil heat. And what I have here is actually some purple garlic, which is really cool. The outside was purple and now the inside is the regular garlic, and we're going to actually brown this. So we're going to brown this, and this is about also 2 tablespoons of garlic, and fresh garlic is the best garlic. I know you can buy garlic in a can and put that into your dish. It does not taste the same. It does not taste the same. Yes. And I encourage you all to also grow your own garlic. We can grow garlic here in San Antonio, which is an amazing thing, right? And so we're going to let this brown just a little bit, and I'm going to be careful and cautious of our 2 smoke detectors right above me. I do have chives with me or green onions. And so you never really want to use green onions in the beginning of your cooking. You always want to use it at the end because they do like to release a little bit of a slimy substance, and you don't want that to release while it's cooking. And then I have onions. So we're going to let this brown for maybe 5 minutes. And so it's actually a perfect sizzle. I don't know if you can hear that onliners. It's a perfect sizzle, and that's all the heat that you need. Remember, the higher the temperature you have your food, the more it's going to cook, the more nutrients you're losing. And so I just want a really tiny, tiny little fire on my gas stove top right now. And I'm using a propane mobile cute little stove. I love these guys, by the way. If y'all ever go on a picnic, you can take these, and they're really nice. You don't have to hook up to electricity. All right, and so what I have here are white onions. If you're ever going to be flash cooking, you want to use white onions. If you're cooking steaks and you're going to be pairing it with onions, you always want to use white onions. Does anybody know what yellow onions are used for? Well, yellow onions are a little bit sweeter and they actually cook a little bit faster. And so definitely you want to keep whenever you're doing the Asian dishes, you're going to keep to the white onions. And so we're going to let this brown. I know y'all can probably smell that really strong garlic. And so I want to encourage you all to also be more open-minded to garlic. I once upon a time had a student tell me, Miss Lim, you smell like garlic. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And back then it was a bad thing. And he said my breath smelled. And I was so ashamed. I was like, I'm not going to eat kimchi anymore. And actually I stopped eating kimchi because of this one student, And I forever remember this one student. I was like, how many days did I go in with garlic breath? But if we all can get used to garlic breath, we can eat it more, right? There's also different kinds of garlic. There's a stronger garlic. Obviously that night I had a really strong garlic. And then you can also purchase more subtle garlics as well. But here we're using a purple garlic and we're going to let it brown. It's almost there. We're going to add about 2 tablespoons of onions. And this is just for flavor for this particular dish. And then here, I'm actually going to add in my sauce, whenever I add my onions, I'm going to actually add a little bit of fish sauce. This does not smell good, but it brings a really wholehearted flavor to your dish. You don't need much. So we're going to add about a teaspoon of fish sauce. If you don't want to use fish sauce, you can actually use regular Kikkoman soy sauce. This actually has a really wholehearted flavor as well. So something that almost tastes a little meaty to your brain. And so you have that satisfaction whenever you're eating food. So I love the brand Kikkoman. If you ever go visit Japan, they actually do everything in a very, very thorough way. So Kikkoman is my brand. If you ever buy the cheaper brands, you can be setting yourself up for not so good tasting food. And so go with the brands that you trust. What is that?
It's adds umami.
Yes, adds umami. Very good. Yeah. We have a chef in the room, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you're like, I'm experienced. And then at the very end of this, so I added some olive oil, garlic. At the very end, I'm going to add 2 things on top of my dish. That's going to be our sesame seed oil. This loves to burn. And so we don't want to cook with sesame seed oil. This is something that you put at the very last, and you don't need a lot. My mom used to tell me, whenever you're using sesame seed oil, only use 2 drops. And I was like, what? I love the taste of it. This has such a beautiful, strong taste, and it goes a long way. Yeah. So sesame seed oil and chives are what we're going to be adding at the last. Okay. So this is where we're going to add in just a little bit of onions, white onions. We're going to let this cook down until they turn translucent just a little bit. So maybe about a minute. And then we're going to go ahead and add, I used a mandolin. If you don't have a mandolin, invest in one, $26 at HEB. Okay. And so, yeah. Oh yeah, these are great. And if you have like cucumbers you need to chop up, this is so great. It took me 30 seconds. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add this. So the onions are a little bit translucent. I wish I could have a camera right here so I could show y'all. So we're going to add in about a pint of sliced zucchini. And so what I love about this shape in general is it looks like a coin. And growing up, my parents used to tell me the more coins you eat, the more money you're going to make. And so I was all over this, right? And so we want to coat the outside of this. And notice it's still on a low heat. We're going to just coat the outside. We are barely looking for translucentness in our squash. So remember, you want to retain that nutrients whenever you're cooking. Same thing. Yes, question.
Yeah, I noticed you salt,
You always can salt. So there are chefs who say salt throughout the whole process, so you get more flavor. There are chefs who say salt at the very end, because what salt does is ultimately a chemical reaction. That all depends on you. The salt will soften your vegetables. I don't want soft vegetables. I want to, good job. Yeah. So that's actually a really great question. Depending on what kind of chef you are, right? If you like a lot of salt, go throughout, the whole thing. But I don't want to lose that nutrients. And so I'm going to actually add it at the very end when I add my sesame seed oil. So really good. Awesome. So I'm going to add a little bit of fish sauce. And I do apologize for those of you sitting kind of in the front. You only need about a teaspoon. This goes a long way. And I guess I will add, because this might take a little bit while. It's on really low heat. And so I'm going to mix that in. I am going to add a little bit of kosher salts. If you don't know the differences in between your salts, whenever you're cooking or baking, you do want to use a kosher salt. This is a bigger granule. And so these granules are really great. And if you need to make them smaller, all you need to do is crush them in between your fingers, right? A lot of chefs are all about the Himalayan salt, or some people really suggest the iodized salts, which is really good actually, because we wouldn't have, I think it's goiters, right? Because of iodine. And so you want to keep in mind that you do want to get that iodine, and the way that Americans have fixed it is by including it into our salt. But yes, I like to use kosher salts, and then on occasion I will use iodine salt. And so we're gonna cover this, not cover it. Sorry, you don't want to cover it because I actually want the water to be released from the squash just a little bit. Again, it's on low heat. Y'all could probably do this a lot faster. And then I also have sesame seeds. So these are toasted sesame seeds. These are actually not that expensive now. They used to actually, during COVID, the price went up. And sesame seeds bring a really nutty, full flavor to this. And we're going to top this with the sesame seeds as well. And so while we're working on that, y'all get to try 2 different types of rice. And I'm going to talk about rice here in a minute. I grew up on rice. And I really do think it's a great staple. There was this fear of eating white rice. Everybody's like, you're going to get fat. You're going to gain weight, blah, 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 blah. But let me tell you, right? Rice is so hearty and so fulfilling. I don't actually really need to eat more than that. And so what I brought to you is one of my favorite rices. It's jasmine rice. And I do wash my rice. If y'all have never seen how rice is harvested, there's a lot of chemicals that go into rice. There's a lot of dust and debris that goes into rice. And if you don't wash it, that is going to stay in your food. And so I actually rinse it 3 times or 4 times until it's clear. And the other thing I'd have is sushi rice. So sushi rice is my favorite. Whenever you look at it, it's shiny and it's gorgeous, right? We have created this beautiful rice. And so I bought some sushi rice, and it's going to be a little bit sweet. So that's going to be a really good component. You can try both types of rices. And these are, I obviously made them in a pot and not a rice cooker, because I didn't have a rice cooker this big. And so y'all are more than welcome to try that. All right. So the other components of this, we're going to let this cook for maybe 3 more minutes, is one of my favorites. So the second component of our dish is actually, I'm going to just show y'all. It's a very, very simple recipe for a fried squash. It's a lightly fried squash. And so there is actually a little bit of sponge to the squash. And what I did was I chopped them into about a quarter inch slices. I got a bag of flour, and I put a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, and I tossed the slices in there. I put a little bit of olive oil in my pan, and I got some I got some eggs, and I whisked them. I dipped the flour covered discs, I guess, in the egg, and then I fried them lightly for about 2 minutes on each side. And that is what you have right there. So you should also feel a little bit of crunch, and it's also very fulfilling because it's breaded. And kids like to eat that too, because they think it's fried, and it's breaded, but it's actually a vegetable. So y'all get to try that as well. And then the third component of this, I know I made a lot for y'all, I got excited, is you know that I like to overdo things. Always. I made y'all some beautiful zucchini bread. So, and I don't know if you made enough there. Yeah. No, like I said, I got excited. So I used about 15 zucchinis last night in just this zucchini bread. And so it's very simple. I have the recipe up here. It's actually 3 cups of zucchini. It's grated zucchini. It's 2 cups of flour. You can use AP flour. You can use cake flour. I like using all-purpose flour. And then it's actually 1 cup of sugar, just a little bit of sugar. So that's the other thing I really like teaching about is what if our cakes were just a little bit less sweet? What if our breads were just a little bit less sweet? And so this is not a sweet bread, but it's so good. And a lot of the starch component is zucchini. It's a vegetable. Same thing, whenever you eat banana bread, that starch component is actually banana. And so I really want y'all to be open to it. You know, I made a wedding cake once and it was all banana cake and I absolutely loved it. I was like, this is the most gorgeous wedding. And so getting used to replacing things with your fruits and vegetables, I really truly think the best way to be healthier and for our future, right, is to eat fruits and vegetables and not so much meat. Notice here, I have no meat, which I'm excited for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. I'm going to turn off my flame and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more salt. I don't know why the grate is on the top of this salt because it doesn't actually really go through well. I'll talk to the company about that. And then we're going to top it off with a little bit of sesame seed oil. And as soon as I put this down, I'm sure y'all will smell it here in the front. So just about a teaspoon. I still smell a lot of garlic. I probably put a little bit too much garlic, but I do like garlic. Never. Yes, yes, yes. If you're like my dad, he likes to actually eat whole garlics. I met a grandpa once who just used to bite into onions as if they were apples. I was very inspired. I was like, I want to get there. I'm not there yet. And so we have a little bit of sesame seeds that were toasted before I came here. And that's pretty much it. That's the dish. And so y'all will have the opportunity to come taste this. We're going to start plating. And as we're plating, I do want to talk to you just a little bit more about, I guess, how to garden these components. How many of you have grown squash? Nice, nice. And what kind of squash did y'all grow? Yellow?
What are they called, the petty farm?
Patty pan,
Patty farm one.
Butternut spaghetti.
Butternut. Oh, okay, nice. The UFO ones. Oh, nice. We have a lemon squash, acorn. And so right now, butternut. Were y'all all successful? Spaghetti?
Oh, what's the little delicata?
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a beautiful squash.
Yeah.
It's,
I did an Italian one that curled around.
Tramontino.
So, it had a bulb at the end, but
Yeah.
it snaked around. It was-
That one's really good for getting around the squash line borers because they're really tiny spot, tiny lines.
Yes, and I have a terrible problem with rotten bulb.
Everybody does.
are being hit hard with squash vine borers. If you don't know what that is, it is a little larva. And it likes to eat the stems of your squash plants. And actually that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So whenever we have these pests and diseases come and eat our foods, actually Cohen mentioned it, try to get your more resistant varieties of squash. So there's actually a couple of varieties. Yes, yeah.
Stem that will reroot, and
That's
that
right.
way, if you do get them, you might have
So we'll
some
put-
pieces that get saved.
The Tramontinos, really good with that. There's also calabacita. It's a variety in Spanish, like calabaza or calabacita, like it's the general term for squash. But there's a general, it's like a cannonball type kind of squash that,
Like turmeric,
tutume.
yeah,
Yeah, that'll work.
Sweet.
yeah, and I used to
Little
do
bit.
them at the heirloom seeds.
Mhm.
Baker's
and-
Street,
And heirloom,
I
vari-
throw it in there.
and
One-
heirloom,
maybe
var-
one or two.
heirloom varieties, you know, like heirloom varieties have been around for about 50 years. They've been proven that their genetics are stable. If you get heirloom varieties, they'll be more pest resistant to that as well, if they have a thinner stem.
Tell you, this squash vine.
You know what the moth looks like?
Yeah. In fact, there's, the orange with the black wings that I see in the morning.
They look like a typical moth.
Yeah.
It's like almost like a wasp looking.
Yeah, it looks more
Would you like
white.
one?
And then there's one that's a white moth that comes at
You're so
night.
welcome.
It usually doesn't wings.
So your bigger squash, you'll wanna lift up the leaves and look underneath. If you see black
Yeah,
eggs,
two is good.
Oh, yeah, black eggs.
you wanna rip that out. Cause they lay their eggs underneath the leaf.
Yeah.
And then the larvae hatch and they go down into the leaf node and that's when they go into the stem. So if you
Yeah.
just do a daily inspection and see
And
if
then
they're
look
under.
at that orange sort of brass that gets in there, the stem where the leaf hits the main stem. But yeah, it's terrible, and I've cut them out.
Yeah, and it'll go from a beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, It's horrifying.
Oh,
Oh, good, thank you, because, yeah.
My cantaloupe at BSA got hit by the squash bird.
They'll definitely eat that.
Probably have been messing with, my watermelons.
Jared, do you have ducks?
I do,
Me too.
yes.
Cause I was gonna say, come get some. I have so many people who don't wanna eat duck eggs. I guess they think
Oh.
it's gonna be like, gamey.
They,
And I tell them, look, my chickens and my ducks eat the same high quality food, and I don't have a pond, they're not eating frogs or fish. You know?
Yes.
No, the only thing is the textural difference in the egg white to me. But I'd rather eat a duck egg than eat egg on my vegan fat with bulky.
oh, nice. The more we're open to tasting foods, the less waste I feel like there is, yeah.
It's only gonna go to feedback to.
Oh, okay.
Just
All right.
separate
Thank you so much.
So welcome. Yeah.
Separate it, put it in the compost pile. I'm not sure we designated the compost pile.
You're doing 2 slices of carrots.
I doing good. You're afraid that deer are gonna come through, you start compost pile. Just so it's out of the way.
Yeah.
I should have brought chopsticks.
Your, Mountain Laurel, the big Mountain Laurel that you have out in the front in that front corner.
And,
Oh,
I'm gonna put my compost as much. When you have a garden, everything stays. You're only bringing in.
Oh, thank you.
yes. The which? Yes, and eggs, that's it.
Work with that, I'll work on that this. And then I.
Yeah, you're welcome, yeah.
There you go, man.
Thank you.
Is that not the best thing?
I don't know of a better way, other than, like a daily inspection on the underside of the leaves,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
All there and then you,
Thank you so much.
you cut the bag over.
One more, okay.
Would y'all like one? Yes, yes. Do you want me to turn off my mic?
I gotta get those.
Yeah, I'll write it on the board.
Rather than have you running around.
Thank you, thank you.
How do I bring it up?
Cheers.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Because it is.
Okay, and I can't stop talking.
You're doing amazing. Oh,
But the thing is, like, you reach the people.
Because
Like,
everybody. And he does, so I think we need 2 more. Yeah. 2 more plates. Okay, the another one.
raise a hand, you need a plate?
1, 2.
Need a plate? All right.
You're so welcome. I love your sticks. Yeah, I know. I love the bread.
And I try to, yeah, and then I try to like overdo it with sleep meds and like I did overdo it. So like, I was supposed to come in last Saturday to help with the Pearl, and like my girlfriend was like, no, you're not driving.
Here we have the fruit trees. Downstairs that goes to the dock.
Okay. Is this our last? I said, we just finished. Yeah, back up, back.
Yay. Thank you. Yay. Would you like a plate? Okay. You're so funny. Good job, Sasha.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Now the job of finishing everything.
Now I have to plate my food. Seconds? Seconds?
If y'all would like to take some bread to go.
This is, you said sushi, right?
Yeah, it's sushi rice, so it's a little bit sweeter, and then jasmine rice has jasmine, I guess, infused into it.
So what makes the sushi rice? Is it just like what makes?
It's short grained and it has more gluten. Oh my gosh.
Eggs in your bread, pardon me?
So yes, yes. There are just a little bit of eggs, but I actually used a lot of applesauce in the bread. Yeah. There is a vegan zucchini bread. You actually don't have to put the eggs in it, but you can use flax seeds instead. Yes, I'm sure you've made it before.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Sherry, Commissioner, this one has.
So yes, that one is just your zucchini, and then it has flour. So I chop the coins and then I put them in flour. But in the flour, there's just a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar. And then after it's barely coated with flour, you just dip it in some egg. And then you can lightly fry it.
Penne?
Yeah,
Is it penne station?
a penny.
Penne station, like flour, like the.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, it's fun.
Could you talk a little more like fresh rice versus like how you can determine what's fresh rice versus what's been like stored in the warehouse for a while?
That's a good question. Do you know?
Usually I just go for like what looks cleaner, like the premium grade rice.
Yeah.
So I go like to an Asian market and get it there as opposed to just getting the regular old like jasmine stuff or basmati from HEB.
Yeah, I actually like that topic a lot. I don't know if I'm still on.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna hear.
Okay. For those of you interested in rice, so I do get my rice from the Asian grocery store, and I do get premium. I don't ever buy, I guess, the really cheap rice from the regular grocery stores. I do feel like because rice is such an important component of my diet, I buy the highest quality rice, and there is a huge difference. What you are eating, one of the grains you're eating is the shortest grain that you can buy, and it has a lot more. I forgot the name. It begins with a G. Not gluten. It's glutamate. Is it glutamate? Oh my God. Whenever you eat mochi, one of the glue. And so, yes. And in, I guess, the flavor profiles that I really appreciate, I do appreciate sweet, salty, sour in all my dishes. And so I know you don't have the sour component, but whenever I feel like I eat those three, I feel more satisfied in my meal. And so
You need kimchi.
that's right. I did not make out kimchi because I didn't want to stink up the room. Student, remember, I have a memory. And so thank you, student, if you're listening. And so kimchi is a very powerful smell because it has so much garlic in it. And so, but yeah, I highly recommend, hi friends, I do highly recommend y'all invest in your rice. And I want to give a huge shout out to rice because rice is super delicious as you're finishing up with that. Yeah, I know a 20-pound bag of premium rice is probably going for about $35, $40. That's pretty expensive. Yeah, that's pretty expensive. Yeah.
And Karen Cardinal with us.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. Mi casa, su casa. It's just at Trinity. So I can say it out loud again. I'm so sorry. I didn't tell you the other components. So it's 3 cups of grated zucchini. You can actually add a little bit more. For the zucchinis at HEB, they were pretty large. So it was actually 2 zucchinis that made about 3 cups. I'm sorry. It was 1 zucchini that made about 3 cups. I do apologize. Yes. And then it's 2 cups of flour. And then it's 1 cup of sugar, white sugar, or you can use brown sugar. If you're using brown sugar, use a little bit more brown sugar. And then you're going to add a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt. You're going to do 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Y'all can tell I'm a baker because I have all my recipes memorized. You tell me to make some chocolate chips, I can. And then I used 2 eggs. I did 3/4 of a cup of applesauce. And then it has half a cup of olive oil. Of olive oil? Yes. Half a cup. Yeah, and that's it.
I heard you mention the first 3 ingredients the first time, and as I was eating, it was like, there's no way, there's gotta be more.
Yeah, that's all you're eating. The zucchini and the flour. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I did put a little bit of cinnamon. Yes, I put like a half. I really like dark bread, so I put a little bit more cinnamon. So it's about a teaspoon of cinnamon. Yes, thank you. Yes, yeah. I know it. This one?
Yeah.
You mean to do this one too? Yeah. Bless you. Bless you. Yeah. If any of y'all want some soy sauce too.
Yeah, I was going to get my extra shot.
Yeah. Yes. I'm like Jim's. I don't add salt into a lot of my food because you can always add salt later.
So much.
Brain rice, like I've seen a lot of like.
Yeah. So that's a really good one. So usually, yes, Stacey.
That are like already.
So what, the sushi rice that we had, if you can grab some of that, that's gonna be your base. And then you can actually incorporate beans, you can incorporate legumes, you can incorporate, and then you can just cook that all together. But you have to keep in mind, because they're different sizes, you have to soak. Yeah, you have to either soak your beans, or you have to cook it twice. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever had like the purple rice or that, but that's all. Yeah.
I follow a couple of Instagrammers and
One of my friends.
one shared like
makes
her
them,
mom's
so they sell
recipe.
them at the,
And I didn't understand. what she
the food
said,
store
so,
in
like,
the animal hospital.
Cause she was doing,
And then
I feel like
sell them
using
at,
the rice.
The rice cooker.
Like, she was like, all right, her rice cooker was very different from mine. I have just the one button.
The one button.
Like, that's like a really old-
You don't need that.
And so it's like, and I'm just gonna set it again, play, I'm like, all right, you lost it. Like, I ended up doing it back until she said, cook it again. I was like, I don't know, like, she cooked the wet and then that one was the spring.
It does.
I was afraid it's gonna like, it works.
She goes all around. the
And
bar.
that's a possibility. Yes. If you want, like my always go-to is just a pot with the rice and the beans in it, and then cook it. And then you have more control how it's cooking, and then it's usually always covered. You never want to uncover rice while it's cooking, sticky rice that is, because all the flavor is in there. And once you release that, that's your flavor going to that aroma. So, but what you can do is take a quick peek, right?
Right.
And so that's usually what I.
Although it is like my mom and like more Mexican traditional cooking, it's like do not open the pot.
Yeah.
Like, I've been like conditioned, like do not open the pot.
That's good.
That's why I have like my all flags with the special one, yeah, I'm like, don't, because I can't look, I have to be able to see.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, but I encourage, we actually mostly now eat multi-grain rices. I know I didn't talk about brown rice, but yeah, I mean like It has a,
Because there has to be like a lot more, you know, all the different, right?
yes, yeah.
And so you like the kind of like that.
So I'm actually a pastry chef.
So.
So yeah, and I,
And now you're gonna do, how are you gonna do? With all this, like, you're gonna get the PhD, what's gonna be your time?
oh, I don't know.
When you get there.
So good seeing you.
Oh, don't be full time now?
I am,
How
yes.
wonderful. We wondered where you
I
went.
do. I was just there yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I still help with the chickens. I still do some
Oh,
classes.
really?
I do. Yeah, I
Well,
know
you
a lot of us
my house-
left.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there was a huge turnout.
I don't know what happened.
You were doing the monitoring as well, weren't
Yes,
you? I
yes,
remember
that was me.
you, yeah.
I don't know if it's still going on.
Well, if you ever feel like it, I'm the house right next to the new bakery Lorraine on Oak Park.
Oh, nice. Oh, no.
Yes. So
I'll give you a
the
little
crazy
bakery
lady with all the ducks and chickens.
I have
and-
to come by.
Yes.
If you're right across the street from me, it's just, yeah, one of my students lives right next to Cibolo and I tutor him still. And then I help go take care of their chickens too.
Well, that's good. And I volunteered to
You're
do
so-
that, but they haven't ever called me, yeah, I've got my own.
So you did, I was trying to work it out. You did a degree in Korea. You came back, you did a
I got
degree
my-
here, then you did